Welcome in and welcome back. We're here for a review slash discussion, a spoiler review or discussion about The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 2, Chapter 10. I am not sure what the title of this episode is. Right now on my Disney Plus, last episode, which was apparently titled The Marshal, is still called Chapter 9, and this is still called Chapter 10. I am not sure what exactly is going on there. You're cockeyed. I can't get this straight. That's close enough. Screw it. So I think what I want to do is, again, spoilers. So if you have not yet seen the episode, do that first and then come back here. But I want to get some just random things off of the discussion first, and then we're going to get into the themes, the major themes of the episode, and a couple things that I think is interesting, that are interesting oftentimes to talk about when observing genre types of fiction like sci-fi. Genre, of course, in quotes, because all fiction really is literary fiction. It just depends on where the emphasis is. And if there is more emphasis on certain things, these things end up classifying fictions as sci-fi, horror, things like that. But really, all we're doing in any type of fiction is exploring characters and the way that they interact with things. So, and I think this series thus far has done a pretty good job of the literary type of aspect of this type of fiction. The first thing I want to talk about is a little bit of inconsistencies with characters here. The beginning of the episode, the Mandalorian gets bountied. Basically, 4 bounty hunters spring a trap on him. And the first thing out of their mouths, once the Mandalorian has wrecked, is get the child. They know about the child. They're after, apparently, the child. They know how much it's worth. So then why, once the child has been apprehended by the lone survivor, why would that lone bounty hunter then trade Baby Yoda for a rocket pack? It doesn't. The Phoenix, is that what it's called? The Phoenixes? Isn't that what we learned in season 1? Something like that. The Rising Phoenix, something like that. House of the Rising Sun. So why then trade something such as the child, which is worth so much more money, obviously, than is the rocket pack that we're willing to. Why trade it? Why trade it? So I don't know if that's an inconsistency, if there's something I'm not picking up, if he's just sure that the Mandalorian is going to kill him the moment he gets far enough away, whether he's got the baby or not. I'm not 100% sure, but it seemed a little bit of a, and that's one of the things we get into when we start, we're in the 10th episode now of this series, so we're going to start seeing strain on the basics. That is unfortunately one of the things in longer form storytelling that ends up popping up from time to time, strain on character dynamics where someone does something. There's something to be said for being predictable, which is something I'm going to get back to in a minute. Predictability means that you have conveyed your world and your characters very well. Something unpredictable, something surprising from the interactions, the dynamics there, means that there's something strained. And herein, it seems to me, the writers, Jon Favreau maybe, put himself in a bind with a hostage situation and needed an out. And that's something that happens time and again in this series, which is sort of starting to get old with someone coming to save the day. The second thing, which is just a small observation that I really have to make, when the Mandalorian is carrying the wreckage into the town over his shoulders like this, I could not help but think of Soundgarden's Jesus Christ Pose music video. If you've not seen it, you have to see it. If you've not heard it, you have to hear it. If you don't know the angelic voice of Chris Cornell, you really owe it to yourself, and your projection in life will be better with a little bit of Chris Cornell mixed in from time to time. Number 3, the choreography continues to shine on this show. Now, I think part of that is the fact that what we're doing is we're getting a guy series. So why not put some emphasis on the guy stuff, the cold, distant dialogue that happens from time to time, very guy movie like. The choreography having emphasis placed on it. We don't just have action; we have actual fight scenes, which were for a long time increasingly few and far between. And I blame Christopher Nolan, Batman Begins, once everybody saw that shaky cam stuff working more or less, and you didn't have to put all of this effort into fight scenes. Why spend the money on it? But here we have emphasis put on fight scenes and battle choreography too, because it's not just hand-to-hand combat. There's guns mixed in, things like that, weapons, distance weapons, not just melee weapons, right? So there's a lot of choreography put on that is continues to be impressive. But again, getting back to unpredictability, I have to say this show is incredibly unpredictable. You watch enough movies, you see enough TV, you read enough books, you read enough short stories, poems, etc. Certain things start to become predictable. And even spanning over something like a series, predictable. Characters, what are they going to do? What are the main story lines that are going to come up? What are the main plot points that are going to come up? Which character is going to turn coat? All these things end up becoming predictable. But I have to say that through 10 episodes, this series is painted with very familiar pastels, but it's still unpredictable. We know the world of Star Wars, we know the world of Westerns, we know the world of sci-fi, but this continues to surprise, not just with, oh, there's a fucking frog lady. Not just with that. The frog lady needs to transport her eggs. I've never seen that storyline before. Surprise, spiders. Sure, we've seen spiders before. I've never seen them in a Star Wars context. Apparently, last episode with the dragon, I'd never seen dragons in a Star Wars context. Apparently, it's a big thing from a video game. But to me, at least, this continues to surprise. So that is refreshing. It would be very easy, would it not, to just paint by numbers. In fact, we just got a series of movies that was nothing but paint by numbers from the new Star Wars, taking just straight nicking stuff from the last Star Wars, or from the original Star Wars. So it would be very easy to just paint by numbers all the way through something like this, but Disney is deciding, Jon Favreau is deciding, Lucasfilm is deciding not to do that. They are instead expanding the universe, expanding characters, giving us new characters, giving us pretty great cameos. We had another cameo from Dave Filoni here. So they continue to not only surprise, but to expand, which I think is commendable in something. Look, if they threw a Mandalorian and a Baby Yoda in a series like this and just painted by numbers, they'd make their money back for sure. They are aiming above that bar, which is nice and refreshing to see. The frog lady, I want to get into this part of the story. We're going to start talking about some of the themes that end up popping up here. Am I the only one who watched the credits to see if the frog lady ended up being Ray Park? Because when she got to running, she moved a lot like Ray Park as the Toad from the original X-Men movie. I didn't end up seeing Ray Park listed, though I didn't see anyone listed as in the frog uniform. I think I saw a woman's name listed next to the frog voice, but I didn't see anyone listed as being in the frog uniform unless I overlooked it. That is just a small thing, but moving on. I've talked already a little bit about how surprising it is to see a plot point of we're going to save X character's eggs by transporting her across the universe where they can be fertilized. That's different to me. It's saving the next generation. Does that sound compelling to old school Star Wars fans? Saving an entire lineage. There have been rumors pop up recently that The Mandalorian is going to end up unwriting the Disney released Star Wars movies. What is that trilogy called? I don't even know what the new trilogy is called. Just the new trilogy? The Ridley trilogy? I don't know exactly what to call it, but there is a rumor popping up that what's going to happen here is that the Mandalorian is going to unwrite the new Disney movies as being just an alternative future timeline, which, okay, whatever. But I realized something that I hadn't realized, probably because I'm a noob sort of to the Star Wars thing. They're going to take Baby Yoda to find other Jedi, his kind. Am I wrong in assuming that Luke Skywalker's the only Jedi at this time? Isn't that one of the points that the new series made, is after this thing, he was the only Jedi? After the original trilogy, he was the only Jedi left and then had to start his own school. So am I wrong in assuming that in this time period, not this timeline, this time period, in the Star Wars universe, Luke Skywalker is the person they must be trying to find in order to find a home for Baby Yoda? Which would be an interesting dynamic, watching Luke Skywalker raise a young Yoda as opposed to the other way around. But what we're doing with saving this character's lineage is the same thing that the Mandalorian is attempting to do by saving Star Wars. Yeah. Jon Favreau is attempting to scurry the future of the Star Wars franchise across the universe, maybe away from Disney as far as possible, slowly, not being able to go into hyperspeed or warp drive or whatever it is, because the eggs might get scrambled along the way. But yeah, it is perhaps a little bit symbolic about what we're doing with this series in general, in that what we are trying to do is save Star Wars for future generations. My computers, I don't know if you can hear that, if you're probably hearing that over me. My computer is really loud. I think my computer is dying. But while we're talking about the babies, we sort of feel bad here for this frog lady, because she is trying to save her lineage. She's trying to save those things which are precious to her. She is trying to preserve the future, as it were. And what happens is they crash on a planet and they end up being attacked by another type of baby that Baby Yoda is attempting to consume. Baby Yoda goes and eats these spiders. Did you get the same feeling in your gut when he started eating the spiders as you did when he started eating the frog lady's eggs? I doubt very much that you did. I bet that your stomach dropped for the frog lady when he plopped one of those eggs in his mouth. But I bet your stomach dropped for Baby Yoda when he plopped one of those slimy little spiders in his mouth. Why? Why do we feel differently? We have an entire escape scene where we're killing off a mother's babies in front of her, and we don't feel sorry for that spider, for that mama spider, and we then have a giant revenge scene where the babies attempt to avenge their mother and their siblings and eat the baby, eat Baby Yoda, and eat the Mandalorian, and eat the frog lady. Now, why do we feel differently about that? Why do we feel adventure when we're knocking off all of the baby spiders, but we feel a little bit of sorrow whenever the idea is introduced and flashed in front of us that the frog lady's line, lineage, family, future may be severed, may be cut off? Why do we feel so much more? Why do we feel compelled to have more sympathy for the frog lady than for the spider species? Obviously, because people hate spiders, but why? I don't think you would risk your life for a mother spider or a mother frog, would you? Mother Frogger. So what's going on there? I think, first off, you're a languagist, okay? So get over your privilege, right? But I think a lot of what's going on there is that it is the language involved. The frog lady, and part of the reason that this comes up is because much is made of the frog lady's language. I don't speak frog, lady. Remember, the Mandalorian has a very hard time communicating with her And in that portion of the episode, she is seen by the Mandalorian as a little bit of a pain in the ass. When does his relationship with said frog lady warm up? See what I did there? Because it's a nice planet. It warms up when she reroutes that old droid's head, and that old droid's head begins communicating with him. Weird, right? We feel a lot more sympathy towards other things that talk to convey emotions, and a whole lot more sympathy with individuals with whom we may communicate directly through our language. So a lot of what we've got going on there is this idea that it is language that makes something worth saving, which is interesting from a storytelling perspective. So we've got a lot of layers there as far as what is okay to sympathize with and what's just there to be action fodder, like disgusting spiders and killing them in front of their mother. It is an interesting thing. It is an interesting observation from this episode. I'd never really thought of it that way. Another weird little coinkydink on a universal scale here. This episode was directed by Peyton Reed. Peyton Reed directed the Spider episode of The Mandalorian. Peyton Reed directed Ant-Man. He's got a thing for bugs. We've all got our kinks. Leave him be. That's a pretty innocuous kink to have in Hollywood, I suppose, these days. Or any days, probably. I've got two more things to... The cops caught him and let him off with a warning. Oh, what's that about? Pointing a gun at the cops and they let him off with a warning, A weird universe in which we find ourselves. There is a lot of a strange type of justice. Remember, I've talked in my review series so far, I've talked a lot about how much this character reminds me of Batman. Because of the get-up, because of the gadgets, because of the Spartan type of philosophy, because of the taking on a Robin type character. There is, if we're going to go back in this episode to my mention of Christopher Nolan, there is a lot of, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you, justice going on. Which is a particularly Western type of justice. You stop somebody in the Wild West and you think it's against your code to kill them. You take their guns for sure so they can't shoot you in the back. And a man without his guns in the Wild West doesn't last for long. So there's a lot of that type of justice going on here, including in this episode when the cops find the Mandalorian, give him a warning, but they're not going to help him fix his ship. Last episode, when the Mandalorian captures John Leguizamo, strings him up, and says, look, I'm not going to kill you, but I can't guarantee that you will survive. And there was at least one example of that in the previous season, but I don't remember exactly when. But that is all I have to talk about for this 11 talking points for season 2, episode 2. And again, if you know the title of this episode, make sure to let me know in the comments below. I don't understand what the title is for this one. I don't understand why it's been so hard to find the titles here. I wonder if there is something. I was not on Disney Plus for the first season of The Mandalorian to debut. By the time that I found The Mandalorian on Disney Plus, all of the titles were already, the season was done, long done. I got Disney Plus like 3 weeks ago. So I don't know if this is something that happened in the first season or not, that the titles for the episodes ended up dropping so much later. But I am interested to know if that is the case, or what the title of this episode is, or why we're being so secretive with the titles here. But that is all I have. I hope to see you next week for the next episode of The Mandalorian.